when he decided he wanted to become pharaoh, was there a heavy battle against him for him not to do that? As I could see that something like a pharaoh is kind of holy, and putting yourself in that holy chair as a Greek is quite far
The
stretched.
companions, or some of them, didn't like it and said so because they're left out. The Pharaoh communes with the gods and they can't be in the room. They're left out. They're kept out. This was going too far. This was too much divinity and too little camaraderie. They didn't like it. But on the other hand, once Alexander died, Ptolemy, who got Egypt to administer, more or less on a Persian model, as though he were satrap, he turned it into, of course, his own kingdom, and he got himself treated as a pharaoh. The formula was the right one, and they kept using it down through Cleopatra. And then Augustus used it. Or rather, used it in a different way, for he stayed out of Egypt for the most part. He did it as an absentee.
But Augustus was crowned as pharaoh?
Yes, indeed. He got the treatment. After everybody else had been eliminated, he got the treatment.
And the Egyptian civilization, were they quite accepting of Alexander as pharaoh?
As long as the people, and especially the literate minority, see Alexander represented especially through art, but also through ritual, as serving the gods in the traditional manner, they'll accept it. There's no racial requirement here, no ethnic requirement. There's a religious requirement, and it's fairly severe.
Did becoming pharaoh give Alexander like certain special power which he could use on the Egyptian civilization? Like, did he have any special defined rights?
Yes,
Which
he was
gave him
Mr.
upper hand?
Water. He was Mr. Water. He made sure it arrived on time in the right amount. And if it didn't, it was the people's fault, unless, of course, he bungled the ceremony. That would be the worst mistake an Egyptian pharaoh could make, is bungle the ceremony and then fail to deliver the water.
What do you mean by bundle ceremony?
There was a ceremony at Memphis where the level of the Nile was measured along with religious practices. And you want to have the right level and you want to have the right practices.
Mm-hmm.
We know the very spot where this was done.
And it's something that happened often?
Every year. The Nile, remember, floods annually.
Mm-hmm. And where did this belief come from? Like, what is this based on?
Well, now we're in the area of speculation, but an Egyptian would say that the gods control the weather. Alexander is a member of the divine family. He's been assigned the task of running Egypt, which belongs to the gods. It's a piece of property they gave to him. He should know all about it. If he doesn't know, the priest should tell him, although, of course, they must pretend that he knows already. And he must perform. There'll be bad years, but there have to be good explanations.
But what did that look like then? Because you just said, like, the gods, they owned Egypt. So what did that look like for the Egyptian civilization to see that the gods gave Alexander Egypt to run? Like, how were they proving that?
Well, there's the myths go like this. The first pharaoh, of course, is Horus, a god. And then it's given to mortals. And what happens to them is they're converted. Their being is altered through a ceremony. In fact, what happens is they're spat on, but the spit comes from the right guy and it lands in the right place. There was much more to it than spitting, but yes, that was part of it.
And it's Alexander who's spitting.
You mean, was he spat on? Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. He did the bit, and we know it. We have no doubt about this. The evidence has been building up, and in the last decade or so, it's become incontrovertible. He was made pharaoh in the traditional way.
What evidence is there to support that he was made pharaoh in the traditional way?
Well, we have many reports, that he did things pharaohs did. What we wanted to zero in on was the ceremony of coronation. That's what we needed. How do we know someone does that? Well, he does it, and he immediately gets his name put up all over Egypt, and it includes his ceremonial name, his crown name, the name that a pharaoh is given when he's crowned. or he has a set of names indeed, and this is part of the set. And we finally found a document that records this in the desert, in a small shrine of Ammon, an oracular shrine like the more famous one in the desert, at Siwa. This one's named Bahariya. We found it, or rather, it was found in the library, ignored for decades. It had been ignored, even though it had been brought to the library in Cairo in the 30s. And it sat there, or rather lay there. And then finally, a young Frenchman poking around with a little help. Aha, yes, I thought this was here. Easy to translate, and no doubt about it. Alexander was Pharaoh, and here are his names, his royal names.
That's fascinating that something like that can just sit around, make us wonder like how much is just sitting around and we have no clue that we've actually have the evidence already.
Yeah, and the biggest example of this, unsurprisingly, is in Egypt, where the government, if I may be blunt about it, is often competent, but Iraq, where sometimes there is no government at all, and a huge store of tablets were taken from Iraq, and now, let's blame the British too, they are sitting in the basement in the British Museum, and there aren't enough experts to read them. The empire is long gone. They won't even it's the saddest thing I could tell you. The British have the goods, but they no longer have the empire, and they seem to have concluded they don't need the goods anymore. Next question. When will the Chinese buy several hundreds in order to improve their command of foreign cultures? That's, of course, how the Chinese Communist Party will have to put if they are atheists over there. But that's my laughable prediction. Some of those untouched tablets, I exaggerate, some of those ignored tablets safely kept and secured, they will end up in China.
I mean,
They invited me to China to talk about Alexander. If they want to listen to me, they want the tablets. They don't want Naiden. They want the facts.
What is like China's view on Alexander the Great? Did they have any understanding about him?
No. When I spoke there, he's not part of their notion. Greek democracy is. Improvements in warfare are. But no, Alexander's cultural stance, his way of governing multiple peoples, this is quite unknown to them.